Hi, I'm Blake Schofield, founder and CEO of The Bridge to Fulfillment. Mom to 3, USA Today top 10 professional coach, and former corporate executive who got tired of sacrificing my life for a comfortable paycheck. My mission is to expand perspectives to achieve greater impact at home and work without sacrifice. This is The Bridge to Fulfillment. What if the key to the growth, fulfillment, joy, connection, and impact that you want lies in a change of your perspective? Seems so simple to say, and yet really hard to understand. Why? Well, because often we believe that the way we view the world, the way we do things is quote unquote just who we are. But when you begin to understand more about how the brain is naturally wired and how it's naturally wired to keep you in the same patterns with the same perspectives, getting the same outcomes, then you can start to rig the game in your favor. You know, this weekend I was having a conversation with friends about how I had been able to transform my life so much and what was the moment or the thing that really launched that change. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know a bit about my story and about the fact that I spent 18 years in corporate retail and I kept changing jobs, companies, et cetera, hoping the next one would finally be better, hoping I could have sustainable fulfillment in my career and also be able to really enjoy my life without going through cycles of burnout or without going through cycles of feeling unfulfilled in the work that I was doing. And yes, that's a big piece of the story. But in this particular case, when I started talking to her about it, what I really said to her was, I couldn't be here today if I had not had this insight, if I had not learned and understood this concept. And I'm going to share this concept with you today. It's really about understanding that the biggest limiting factor in your life to creating the life and the career that you want is your perspective or your beliefs. I love this quote from Mark Twain. The trouble with the world is not that people know too little. It's that they know so many things that just aren't so. So I'm going to start with this idea of perspective. Where does our perspective come from? Well, our perspective comes from our family, how we grow up, and the experiences we have in our life. Our brain is literally wired to quote unquote keep us safe. And what that means to the brain is repeating things we've experienced before, because if we've experienced it before, our brain feels safe. Because what our brain does is it pattern matches. It looks for things that it's experienced before so it can figure out what to expect next. It's a beautiful thing. Say, for instance, if you travel to another country and your brain can pattern match and go, oh, that's a different outlet, but that's still an outlet where I will get electricity. It's a really difficult or challenging thing if you truly want to create growth, fulfillment, change in your life. Because you have to be able to start to understand, oh, my brain is naturally going to want to repeat the same thing. It's going to tell me that it knows what to expect. And in doing so, it's going to narrow my focus to only see the things that I know. And it's going to lead me to believe that what I see is everything that there is and that my view is right. I've had so many clients after doing this work say to me, I love working with you because you don't know what you don't know. And they've learned the concept that is so meaningful to really being able to create what you want in your life. You know, a decade ago, I thought I had a lot figured out. I was confident that I could do the research and look at the right angles and know the right things to do in my business and my life. Today, I would tell you, I know that I know very little. Even though I've spent the last 8 years intensively studying and learning, I've become a perpetual student. And in becoming a perpetual student, it has made me far more successful. It has given me a level of confidence, a level and an ability to create amazing outcomes or opportunities that I would have never been able to do before. And it's really helped me learn to challenge and understand the ways of which I was standing in my own way because I believed so many things that just weren't true. I believed that the way that I saw things was the full story. And that was the thing that kept me from so much more possibility for my life. Here's another Mark Twain quote I love. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. This concept seems so challenging, and it might seem, really theoretical, like, what if what I believe isn't true? How would I even know how to go about that? That seems scary. But it doesn't have to be. For me, it started in really simple, small ways on a daily basis to start to shift the way I was showing up. As I started to do this, circumstances came up that presented the opportunity for me to start to challenge my assumptions. And as I did that, I began to learn and see belief systems I had that may or may not have been true, assumptions I had made that maybe had limited the opportunities, perspectives that I had about how things were going to go or had to go that weren't true. And as I began to just apply this really small shift on a daily basis, it began to show me all of the ways of which I had been making life harder than I needed to, where I had allowed beliefs, conditioning, fears, assumptions to stand in the way of deeper connections, bigger impact, more ease, better opportunities. So I want to share with you a really simple methodology that you can use starting this week, starting today, that can help you begin to see some of the things that you believe that just aren't true, so that you too can start to unlock more growth, happiness, impact for your life. So it starts with number 1, an open and curious mind. Think about it. Children, they just approach the world as if they've never seen anything that they're experiencing before. They explore it. They're open-minded. They don't have assumptions about how it has to go or what it has to look like. How long has it been since you approached life that way? And how might life look different if you showed up from a place of curiosity instead of a place of pressure or responsibility or expectation? Number 2, slow down. When those moments come when you're feeling stress or pressure or disconnection or frustration, stop and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And what am I believing about this circumstance? And then challenge those assumptions by clarifying and asking questions of the other person involved, other people around that circumstance, and remain open to what they share. One of my mentors talks about something called an open loop, which is when a circumstance or something happens and the answer that shows up or what somebody says or does isn't what you expect, that you don't immediately try to explain or justify or prove it wrong, but you allow some space to go, what if? What if that's true? And in doing so, you give some space to look at maybe there's a broader view to the circumstance I'm looking at. And that is how change happens. And this can be super simple. This could be, a circumstance at work where a team member shows up late to a meeting, disorganized, and doesn't have their work done. And your immediate feeling as you slow down and you ask yourself, what am I feeling, is frustration and anger. And then why? Why are you feeling frustrated and angry? Well, I feel like this person doesn't take things seriously. I feel like team members should always come to the meetings prepared. I feel like I'm always having to pick up for this person because they're unorganized. Okay. And then what's my assumption? My assumption is this person doesn't care. They don't put in any effort. They're not a team player. Okay. So now that you know that, then you can start to challenge. Well, is that the only possibilities. The only possibility this person just doesn't care, isn't a team player, and doesn't want to be prepared for the meetings? Or could there be another reason? And then you could challenge your assumption and clarify by going up to that person and just simply stating what you see without judgment or without commentary. Or you could say, hey, Susie, I noticed you were late to the meeting today. And it seemed like, these couple of items you were still in progress on and hadn't yet completed. Tell me a little bit about that. Or tell me a little bit about what's going on. And you leave it open for Susie to share with you. And maybe in that dialogue, by being open and curious, by slowing down and understanding how you're feeling, what your assumptions and beliefs are, and by creating an open space, what you actually learn is that Susie is incredibly overwhelmed. She's having a lot of family problems. Her mom is sick and in the hospital. She was confused about some of the elements that needed to get done. She was unaware or unclear on what was needed for her in this meeting. And she actually felt too guilty and didn't want to be a burden. So she didn't actually communicate some of the family problems and challenges that she's been having. And then what that does is it expands the opportunities for connection, for problem solving. And it moves you from a perspective that Susie's a bad employee who doesn't care to, Susie's an employee who's having a lot of struggles and she needs some support. And how can I help support her to enable her to be the type of team member that will really bring our team forward? This is one small, simple example, but I can tell you that this happens in every single area of your life. And it is so incredibly powerful when you can approach life with this open lens of curiosity, when you can approach life as a lifelong learner, and when you start to recognize that 100%, I can guarantee you have belief systems that you're walking around with today, assumptions that you're walking around with today that just aren't true. And if you are letting those things drive your life, I can promise you, you're not allowing yourself to truly thrive in the way that's truly possible for you in your career and life. So I'll leave you with this. What if what you believe today isn't true? And by allowing yourself to be more open and more curious, you can expand the level of possibilities for your life. You can create ease, joy, connection, fulfillment in ways you never thought possible. And if so, why wouldn't you start today?